Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. I'm Beatriz, Mourad, and today I'm joined by Andy Potter.
Hey.
Today we will be discussing Marvel Rising's Secret Warriors, the latest animated Marvel project. It premiered last Sunday on Disney Channel, and I don't know about you, Andy, but I have a lot of thoughts on it.
Yeah, I do too.
Have a lot of thoughts. But before we get into it, I do want to warn you all that this is a spoiler podcast. If you haven't seen the movie, we will start by having like a very brief non-spoilery discussion. But after that, it's going to be spoilers galore. So I will warn you before we dive in. But if you do want to go see it, it's free on the Disney Channel website, I believe.
Yes, that's where I watched it. I was looking, it's on DisneyGo.com, and I just searched on Google for it, and I found it pretty quick.
Yeah, so it's free there for you to see. So go watch it, then come back, or make up your mind after we talk about it a little bit in the non-spoiler section. You can find out all the info on this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes at overlyanimated.com/iTunes, where we appreciate your star ratings, or search for Overly Animated on your favorite podcatcher. Okay, so Andy, let's just start with the basics. Did you like this movie?
Well, no. But first,
no.
I'd like to say, is this a movie? I'm not so sure it's a movie.
Well, look, this one was treated like a made-for-TV movie. This one was marketed as a movie. So this one we're going to treat as a movie.
Okay. So we'll call it a movie just for simplicity.
Exactly.
But there was a lot going for this, but it never really reached the heights that it could have. There were a lot of really strong character moments thrown into this thing. There were a couple of actually pretty fun fight scenes, but overall, it really strayed away from any tough questions it could ask the characters. It strayed away from the characters ever really having not tough decisions, but character moral decisions they could have, where I'd question whether they're doing the right thing. I always really knew what the right thing to do in the moment was, and they did the right thing immediately. There was no grayness there. And then on top of that, there was also just the animation was kind of poor. It was somehow, I think the animation got worse from the web series.
Which is weird.
I think the fight scene stayed about the same. So there's that. But there were a lot of shots of people just standing around, a lot of shots of people doing nothing. And it was very strange for what this is. It makes me still very confused about what this whole project is. This Marvel Rising project is. I think that all the voice actors were good. I don't think I had any problem with actual voice actors or anything. It was just the writing was a little strange at parts. But on the bright side, the characters were fun. I liked Kamala. I liked Doreen. I liked America, and I liked for the most part. I think the most boring characters were really the Shield ones. I didn't really care for Quake or Patriot or Captain Marvel, annoyingly. But Patriot kind of grew on me in Quake, but Quake was just kind of boring for me. Those are my basic thoughts. I think I don't want to get into more than that without getting into spoilers. But
once we get into spoilers, I will convince you there's a reason to stand Quake.
Okay.
But I agree with you. I agree that I will say that's not that the characters didn't have anything gray. It's not like that they immediately knew what was good and what was bad. It's that either they were on one side or they were on the other side, and there was no nuances in between.
I get. Yeah,
it wasn't that because some of them didn't immediately know what was good. Some of them did make a bad choice. That's where the drama came from. But it was just so simplistic, and there was no reason for that. It didn't make sense. I think they were just pitted against each other for the sake of being pitted against each other, and wasn't really given the grayness that we needed for there to be something interesting or said,
Or I guess what you're saying is, and I agree with you, I think that's a better way to put it, that I think there's no discussions during the fights. There were no people trying to figure out why people were doing things. It was just there was kind of some of that at the very beginning, but for the most part, it was just, oh, I'm fighting you. You're trying to hurt me, so I'm fighting you.
Yeah, it's very simplistic, and I just think these characters in particular, at least with Skrull, especially with Kamala, they have a lot of heart to them, especially in the comics. They do have a lot to them, and they just seem so watered down. They seem so much like a caricature of who they actually are, which is just very frustrating. Because, there's a lot of potential with these. You can do so many interesting things with these characters. And they went for, like, the lowest common denominator. And it was just they went for the easiest thing. It kind of made me feel like, I don't know. I was just like, okay, like, why are they giving us the most cliched story? The story beats that we know we are so familiar with. And to be honest, you could, like, interchange these characters with anyone else from the Marvel universe. Like, any other character, you could have switched with them. There was nothing that really, like, I mean, you could have made it simply, like, it be, like, Peter Parker instead of Kamala Khan, and have it be, like, I don't know, like, Tony Stark instead of Captain Marvel. Like, it could have been like an easy switch, and nothing necessarily would have changed in their character. Like, nothing would have changed.
This just felt like there were cookie cutters, and they just wanted to fit specific characters there. And there were, I guess another way to put it is that there was no real situations where, except for one, I think, situation in the entire movie, where their specific powers solved the problem. There was, like, it was just people existing in the same area together. Like, there was no real interesting, like, thought put into stuff by the characters. It was just like, we're the good guys, we're going to be good. And I think, go ahead.
No, and I will say, in terms of, like, there is no sense of setting here. Like, I know that Kamala's, like, from Jersey, but, like, a lot of times, for instance, like, it's the Avengers are always, like, in Manhattan, right? That's always where they are. And there was always this kind of disconnect with Kamala. Like, she was kind of like, that was the whole point of her. She was like in Jersey. She was away from all the big leagues, but she, like, had her own little, like, pocket of, like, crime fighting she did. Well, and they didn't really do that, and I didn't know where they were, and I was like, wait, but none of these other characters I don't think are from Jersey, so wait, now are they? And it's...
I can explain, because I'm local. I can tell you where she is. She's in Jersey City. Do you know where Jersey City is?
No.
It's directly across the river from Manhattan. Like,
yes, I do know that, yes.
So she is literally she has to just hop on a bus, and she'll be through a tunnel, and she's in Manhattan.
Totally,
and I think that's what they were going.
Totally, but I'm like, that could have easily been Brooklyn.
Yes.
It didn't have any sense. Like, no one said it was Jersey. No one said, like, oh, and they all happened to be in Jersey. I was like, hold on, not all of these characters just happened to be, I was just like, I don't know. Maybe it's because I recently went to Brooklyn. I was like, this could be anywhere.
It seemed like, that was just her home, and she didn't stay there. And they could have expressed that she goes to Manhattan for school or to do hero stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and I'd be fine with that if they wanted to turn, because that's pretty much what they're doing here is turning her into Spider-Man here. They're pretty much making her the Spider-Man analog in this world, which is interesting because this world clearly does not have Peter Parker. Like, that's kind of been expressed, I think.
Do we know that, though? We don't know that.
We don't know that for sure, but I feel pretty confident based on what we've seen from Initiation in this that Peter Parker doesn't exist in this world. And
by the way, this isn't a spoiler because this is talking about Initiation, which we did a previous podcast on, and that's been out for a while. That kind of is like that's been like what? Yeah. Anyway,
it seems like Gwen is the Spider person in that universe, and there's no one else. And I think that's interesting. I think that's an interesting idea to have Kamala do this by herself, because in the comics, Kamala has a lot of other people she can.
Okay. All right. You know what? Let's put a tab on that. We'll get back to this because I have something worth saying, but that we'll get into in the spoilers. Let's just very quickly talk about this music. This isn't like a spoiler, I don't think.
I don't think it is. No.
It's just the way that they scored this movie. See, it's very, very vague. The way that they scored this movie is not great. No. It's very it is very. I found it to be very on the nose at times. I found it to be very annoying. I was like, what? Like, this is when I actually felt like, oh, this is because for instance, I know that in Star Wars, they do this thing called Forces of Destiny, which is this like kind of directed toward a female audience kind of thing. And it just focuses on the female characters. It also has like male characters in it. It isn't just like only the female characters, but the female characters tend to be the primary protagonists of these stories. Because, we've spent so many decades without them being the primary centers of the story. And so this is the one thing that really annoyed me, because this is the thing where they were like, we want like very generic like pop girl power music to and that's like the key for like, oh, like this is like this is for like female demographic, woo. And it's like, no, we don't need this. Is like there's a time and a place for girl power. There's a like at least in terms of the music, there's a time and a place for that type of genre of music, and it just was they just overwent with it, and we didn't need it.
I think an example of this that could be better is like look at Mysticons. Like they play the main theme and that's it. And sometimes even during like other scenes besides the opening, and then they play like a couple other stuff, but it's not really during the scenes where they played it here, because they played songs like during like the fight scenes and the chase scenes, and it's like this isn't when you're supposed to play it. Like I'd be fine if they're like lounging about and they're just playing music in the background or something, or like and I was actually okay with them playing what is clearly the theme song of this show, because it's a show. There's a show here.
It will probably be a show. We'll get into that later, but it most likely will be a show.
My point is that they played the Rise song in the middle, and that was fine. I thought that's okay, and it was that was during the prison escape, right? They played that. I don't know if that okay.
Okay. Point is, there was a moment that fit. There were other moments where it was like, there were just. It wasn't just one song, it was many songs. And I just feel like if they had just like focused their resources on making one great song instead of making like 10 mediocre songs, I feel like it would have been better.
I was just listening to it, like every time a song started, I was like, is this a song they wrote? Why did they commission this? Like I was just questioning why they would commission these songs. Not because they were bad, they were, but not because of that, just because I was like, you could have just played anything here. It didn't need to be this pop song. It just didn't.
Yeah. Anyway, it felt out of place for the tone of the film going for. And final thing before we get into spoilers, I agree with animation style. It's just so strange that maybe it's because like the web shorts were. I wasn't expecting. It was a lower bar. I wasn't expecting as much, but they still seemed so much smoother. It seemed so much better. Whereas with the movie, it was very. It lacked. It was hard, and I don't want to spend too much time on it because it might just be budget issues, you know. And if that's the case, it's really frustrating because it's like, well, I mean, they could have been like, hey, let's not give money and commission these songs, and then just put the money for the animation. They could have done that, but at the same time, it's just kind of like I don't know. It's at the same time, it's like, well, then if you want the show to succeed, why aren't you giving them the money they need to succeed? You know what I mean?
It feels more like the more I watch this, and we'll get into this later, I think, the more I watch this, it feels like this is just like an afterthought, like all of this. Like someone had the idea to make this show, and someone's like, oh, that's a cool idea. And then they just kind of forgot that this existed in some ways, because I don't know what, because like the animation isn't great, the characters aren't great, the writing isn't great, just nothing is great in this show. I don't know why they're making this. I don't know what the point of this show is.
I will say, and this isn't just me playing devil's advocate, but I will say, like, there were certain moments in the show that I really did enjoy, and there were certain lines in this that I was like, okay, if we can just, like, concentrate on this and make this available and everything, like, it has these moments where it really does work and it does shine, but the problem is that they're so few and far between, and and those moments, because there's so few of them, when they happen, I was like, oh, this is good. I got so excited because I was like, oh, okay, so I can get behind this. But yeah, I will agree that there's a lot and to be left desired. There's a lot left.
Staying out of spoilers still, but I just, wow, I lost my thought. What I was going to say was that I just think that, I'm sorry, I lost my thought completely.
Okay. We'll
get to it.
Come back.
It'll come back to me. It's been coming in and out.
All right, guys. So, spoilers, warning. This is when we get into spoilers. Yeah. Again, go watch it on the Disney Go website if you haven't seen it. I mean, just start watching it if you feel it. If you're like, I could keep watching this, then keep watching. Or maybe watch the shorts and be like, if you want more of this, like, this is not as good, but this is something that you can see.
Yeah.
Right, so, spoilers. So, let's just focus on Kamala and Squirrel Girl first. And this is something that I think, this is what I put a tab on. I was so upset. Like, I understand why, like, Squirrel Girl, maybe we didn't get much of her backstory and her background, like her family, her friends or whatever, because the main character of the story is Kamala. Like, she is the moral compass. She is the one who is the center, everything center around her. So obviously I was like, okay, I don't need to see Squirrel Girl's mom or dad or friends at school or whatever. I don't need to see her at school. Kamala, though, I needed her friends, her brother, her dad. These are characters that are just so great in the comics, and it's so rare to have a character, like a superhero main character who has a supporting cast that I'm actually invested in.
Yeah.
Like, it's so rare for that, and she has that in her comic books, and the fact that we didn't get to see any of them, not even just like a reference to them, they just completely took them out. And Squirrel Girl's Kamala's best friend, excuse me, like, when did that happen? Like, I don't know. I just don't like when it's like, we can only have one person that you're friends with. Like, no, like, the whole point of Kamala is that she does, like, it's like Spider-Man. The thing is that she does have a life outside it, and it's the struggle of balancing being a teenager and being a superhero. Like, we didn't have that. They're taking the very core of her character away. And I don't know. And again, a lot of those characters are really cool, and it's like a really diverse cast, and I'm really invested in them. And the fact that we don't get to see any of them, it's just so, and it's not that I needed to see, I didn't even need to hear them speak. I just needed
to know they existed.
They existed, you know, because like from what we saw, Kamala is seen as kind of this loner in a way. And it's like, that's not the case. That's not who she is.
And I didn't get that vibe even from this short that she was a loner. She seemed like she wanted to interact with people. She helped that one person in the parking lot, just because she was there. I don't believe that she wouldn't be helping people or at least talking to people.
You know, and especially because in the shorts we saw Gwen Stacy's friends.
Yeah.
You know? We saw Mary Jane. We saw
Gwen. You know what's funny? Gwen has more friends than any character in the show that we saw.
Like, Gwen has more, like, in terms of, like, background, like, we know her dad. We have drama with her dad and her. Yeah. Like, she was set up so much better than any of these characters. And these are the characters we spend the most time with.
And at some point, I don't know if now's the time, but at some point, can we get into, like, how Initiation was in no way a prequel to any of this?
Well, it kind of was. It kind of was, and we'll get into that. But yeah, and with Squirrel Girl, like, I enjoyed, and one thing that is like a positive that I enjoy, and these are the tiny moments of like joy that I found in the show.
I think I know what you're going to talk about.
But well, I don't know if you do, but like I noticed that even though the fight scenes were kind of lackluster, she was always the one who ended up giving like the final blow, and it always looks very simple. It just looks like her, like at the end of her just doing a punch, but it's just funny given how we're like, Squirrel Girl's actually probably super OP, and we don't quite know why. And it's just funny, kind of, they didn't ruin the theory of like Squirrel Girl being like the person who can take down Thanos, like basically, like they didn't ruin that theory, is what I'm saying, which I liked. I liked that little thing. Yeah,
I liked Squirrel Girl here. I think there were some fun. She had some fun lines. She definitely was the comedic focus of this entire thing, and she had a lot of fun stuff. But unfortunately, she was pretty weak at times. Because she didn't have any depth. She had no family, nothing. And I actually kind of wish we saw some of her family, at least that she had a life outside of just being Squirrel Girl. But what I did enjoy, though, I think one of the better parts of the entire movie was when she told Patriot like that everyone laughs at her, everyone finds her ridiculous, but they can keep laughing at her. She's fine with that, but she just wanted people to help her. Like, I thought that was one of the better things we saw from her. It felt like we were actually seeing some depth to her character, but then we just kind of glossed right past it again.
Yeah, and I really like this whole like app where like superheroes can like update their profile, and so I was like, that's really clever, and it kind of like adds this kind of thing of like, oh, like we're not popular superheroes, we don't have many subscribers or followers, and I'm just like, that's funny. That's something that was very interesting to add on, and I was like, that's good, even though like I kind of wish, like, I feel like Squirrel Girl like deserved a little bit more. Yeah. Given her history, I feel like she deserved a little bit more followings than like say Kamala, who is relatively much more a newer character in just the scope of everything. Yeah. But yeah, and I don't know. I agree. Like she like I just can't get over this fight that Kamala and Doreen had. Like it felt so forced. It felt like there was no like, I understand in the one sense, because, like, okay, they're teenagers, they're brash, they're like, they don't really, like, sit down and breathe for a second and think things through, or it takes some time. I get it. But at the same time, it's like, given the little we know about Doreen here, and, like, she's always been, like, super, like, supportive and all that, like, why, like, making her, like, I understand why, because they're trying to, like, they were trying to do, like, a storyline where it's, like, biases against, like, Inhumans and, like, discrimination and all this stuff. That's what they were trying to do. But the fact that it was just there, it lacks so much of that nuance, and then you don't have a moment where she's actually, like, confronting that idea herself and being, like, having that sort of self-reflection, and you know, and the fact that also, like, Daisy's an Inhuman, and she could have just easily been like, no, dude, like, I'm an Inhuman too. Like, even, she didn't have to tell Patriot, but she could have just, like, pulled Kamala aside and been like, look, like, I'm an Inhuman too. Like, trust me, like, I understand. You know what I mean? Like, it could have, there was just so much that, I think this all just gets back to the Inhuman stuff, which is really poorly done. Oh my God, it is so, like, what is the difference in this case between Inhumans and mutants? Like, they're treating them the same way. Or what's just the difference in terms of Inhumans versus anyone with powers in this world? Yeah. We never get into it. People are just mad at people mad at the Inhumans because they have powers, but how can they tell if someone with powers is Inhuman or just someone with powers? Like, exactly. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. And then you have the whole thing of, like, you have America Chavez, who is from another dimension, right? And it's like, yes. Wait, well then, why doesn't anyone think she's an Inhuman? She's, like, flying all over the place. And she also doesn't have a mask or anything. That's something. Yeah. And then it's not kind of, well, she never really wears a mask. I know, like, but she doesn't, like, for her, secret identity isn't, like, super there. But, like, also, she knew that the Inhumans thing was happening, and she's just like, I don't know. It's just the way that they handled Inhumans just so clearly reflects how murky Inhumans are in the comics themselves. Like, it's always been an issue. Like, always. Like, Inhumans were created, I truly think this isn't, like, this is an opinion, but I truly think this. I feel like Inhumans were created because Fox had the X-Men. So Marvel was like, we need our own new version of what we used to have. And now that they're probably going to get them back, the Inhumans are probably going to go away. Yeah. Honestly, the Inhumans also the origin story of Inhumans really reminds me of, this is kind of a tangent, but do you remember the show Static Shock? Yes. That entire show is just Inhumans. That's what it is. It's like, there's like a cloud of gas, a bunch of people in a city get powers, and it's separate from the rest of the DC universe. And it's really similar to this, even including, like, the fog of gas that gets everybody. But it's done so much better, and it's just... what I'm trying to say is that this kind of way of doing it can be done well. It's just they refuse to, like, go into depth on, like, what it means to be Inhuman, why some people wouldn't like them, why they're different from other people. Like, I understand in terms of time constraints, like that. I didn't need everything to be explained to me. And I think one of the faults with this movie is that there is a lot of exposition. Like, there's a lot of it, so I didn't need more of it. But I think that's just the thing with DC is allowed to have, like, pockets of, like, difference in their universe. Yeah. Whereas with Marvel, everything's connected. Everything's impacted. Yeah. And this is just one of those cases where that's the short end of having everything connected, is that sometimes things don't make sense. Yeah. Because then what's the difference? If everyone's a superhero, then what's the difference between this type of superhero and this type of superhero? Yeah. I think the difference they were trying to show to us in this thing, or they were trying to get across, but it didn't really work, is that they don't really have complete control over their powers. Like, but I don't know how you can tell that from just looking at somebody. You know, but I mean, it could have been, like, an easy kind of fix. It could have just done, instead of, like, been like, oh, like, have Kamala, like, explain what happened to her. It could have just been like, Kamala has a nightmare where she dreams back to when she lost control of her powers because Dante kind of triggered that memory back to her. Or, you know, like, there are more moments that could have just easily been more gracefully integrated into the story, and not actually have someone be like, have a voiceover and been like, this is what happened to me and this is why I'm blah blah blah. Like, it just seemed very very low quality in terms of not even in terms of, like, animation or something. It's just, it seemed low quality in terms of the writing. The writing wasn't as strong as it needed to be, especially with something as headache inducing as an Inhuman storyline in all this.
Or they could have just had like somebody show, and I agree with you, I'm sorry, but I think they also could have just done like shown more clearly like how they lose power, like maybe lose control of their power, like maybe they could have shown like Kamala getting mad, like they kind of showed that at the beginning, but it was unclear that was a loss of control of powers or loss of control of like just herself, you know what I mean? They could have been more clear on that, like they could have Kamala be like at Doreen and she got big, but they didn't really feel like a loss of control of power, you know what I mean? It felt like because in superhero shows, you need to make it very clear when someone uses a power and they don't mean to. Because when like in Avatar, they have magical powers in that show, but when they're using their powers, it's very clear, like when Katara broke the iceberg at the beginning, that she's out of control. But in this show, it's unclear whether they're using their magic powers in control or not in control.
Again, like they've spent like, again, comparing Avatar that spent like hours and hours developing these characters versus this like one like.
Well, no, but I mean, Avatar, it showed it. I knew that in the first 7 minutes of the show. That's the first like 5 minutes that she loses control.
Fair. Like if you compare like Aang in the Avatar state versus him not in the Avatar state, like okay, there's a level of control. I will say I enjoy that Kamala doesn't just like she does like. When, say, she stretches herself for too long or something, it, like, remains. There's residue. Like, she gets tired of it. So
that was cool.
I like those moments with her. I just think it needed more of a... I don't know. Like, I just feel like it needed more of a, like, I don't know, more... I agree. They needed to be a little bit more obvious in her relative newness as a superhero. And it needed, like, her level of rookiness. And then it needed also... Because, for instance, like, Victor was like, oh, Kamala Khan, I've heard of you. And it's like, how long has she been doing this then? Like, doing this? Like, I don't know. Like, there's just this lack of lack of a sense of time. And I just feel like, definitely, especially with these characters, like, I feel like the writing just assumed that people watching had read the comics. They just assumed everyone knew the comics and the backstories, and that's not how you want to do this. Like, especially if you're going to deviate so much from the comics.
So let me ask you this: do you know when the Inhuman Cloud was? Because I don't. I don't know whenever all the Inhumans started appearing.
Like in terms of I don't know.
Exactly. That's my point.
Know. But I mean, to be honest, like. In the comics, I don't know either. You know, like everyone.
But I mean,
like,
we should have to have a knowledge of the comics, though. We should.
I know. What I mean is, this is one of those things where it's like, the comics are so convoluted in themselves. It's like if you're gonna take something that even in its original form is so convoluted, to bring it into this much more simplistic thing, it's just gonna. If you don't do it well, if you don't do it right, it's going to just get even murkier and confusing.
Yeah, it does. It happens here a lot.
But okay, let's talk about Daisy and Patriot. Let's talk about these SHIELD agents. Sure. So you liked Patriot by the end of this. You were like, okay, you warmed up to him.
Like might be a little strong, but I wasn't. I was kind of neutral on him by the end. Like at the beginning, I was just like, he's just kind of boring. But at the end, I thought he was kind of making quips. I was okay with him. Daisy, I felt like she just didn't have a point in the show at all, really. But you said you liked her?
Okay, well, here's the thing. Here's the reason I liked her. And because you could totally ship her with America. There were just whenever they because look, this show was very like hetero heavy. You know, it was very like everyone's being paired off. You had Dante and Kamala. There was Victor trying to, and we'll talk about Victor because there's something that I think the show should have done more with, and we'll talk about a little bit later. But there was definitely like something with Kamala and Victor as well. And then there was like Doreen and Patriot, Doreen and Rayshawn. They were just like, okay, there's something there. Whenever they were paired off, it was always Daisy and America. And it was always, they had these like moments or whatever. Like Daisy was the one who was telling America, like, see, like you can be a hero, blah, blah, blah. Like, come on. Like there were this, like, I am very fluent in subtext. I'm very fluent in that language of subtext or gay subtext. I'm very fluent in it. I understand it very well. And that was it.
I can't believe I didn't expect this coming. Like, I was like, what is she going to say? What part of Daisy did she like? And I'm like, how did I not expect it? It was just like, you just want her to be gay. That's all it was.
Well, and also on top of it all, like, I feel like her voice actress, who is the actress who plays Daisy Johnson in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I feel like she was the best voice. She was the best performance of the show. So there was also that. I felt like her. Yeah. But anyway, so I was.
Did you like Patriot?
I did. There's like I made a point where I said Patriot, less annoying.
I don't know what makes you like him. He's just less annoying.
No, I did. I warmed up to him in the end. Like Doreen made me warm up to him in the end.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I get it. Like you're the straight man. You're not in terms of like sexuality, but just in terms of like the comedy. Like, and it's like it's a nice dynamic between him and like Doreen. That she's the guy and he's like the one. You know, it's like I enjoyed it. I think that I got more sense of him. I got used to his voice. He differentiated himself enough from the.
I'm still unclear about how old he is, but
also I also need to make this clear because I think I didn't know this because we finally got his name in the show and and it's Rayshawn Lucas. It's not Sam Wilson.
No.
So which in the initiation I don't think we got his name in initiation, so I always assumed he was Falcon.
We kind of did, but I think in the middle of it the Wikipedia page had him as Rayshawn, but it never said it.
We just didn't. I don't know. I was just like, Falcon is Patriot. Like, I guess because Sam Wilson is Patriot in the comics, so we just assumed it was the same guy. It's not. It's a different one. So that's why, like, I was like less like, oh, but Sam Wilson isn't like this because it's not Sam Wilson. So we're fine on that front. He I don't know. He was fine. I was like, they're cute. Like him and Doreen, they're cute. It's fine. But yeah, I just feel like, and this is the thing with initiation that is like weird. It's like there is this I feel like despite having initiation before this, there was not enough setup of Daisy betraying Rayshawn. There was just not enough. I needed more.
And it didn't really feel like betraying Rayshawn. It was just like she did fill out some paperwork. That's all she did.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like I needed more moments of Rayshawn being like, I don't know, I needed more of like them being like, oh, like, even though like he's very proud of being like working with Captain America, at the same time I'm like, okay, well I need more of you, like it's just a lack of depth. It was just, again, it's the same thing. All these characters have the same problem, which is a lack of depth.
I think the thing here is that they showed the wrong flashbacks for exposition. Like I would have liked a flashback of him training with Captain America, like a really short one, just like showing like he is with him, but I didn't need a
I understand why, given that Captain America shows up at the end as like a surprise. So I understand why they didn't, but also like
it felt more necessary than a flashback of showing Kamala getting her powers, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And I feel like in these cases, it's one of like these things where they're like, ooh, we'll leave Captain America for the end. But then they didn't actually think that maybe that would hurt the story.
Yeah.
They were so committed to having Captain America surprise at the end that they didn't realize hey, maybe it would help and make the story smoother if you bring him even a little bit earlier just for like
and I think it's still a surprise if you still show him training Patriots. You know he's related to him. You know they have a relationship going.
Exactly.
And, yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, and you could have done it in a way where you don't see his face, you just see like the shield, you know?
Or
like,
you don't have to have him talk. You just have to show them like maybe like a quick fight scene, and you show him, or you just have like him realize that he's weaker or something. Like,
or something. Yeah.
You just can show him training a lot.
Yeah, there are.
I'm not a writer, I'm not an animator, but I'm sure people could think of ways to show it.
Well, I am a writer, and I can tell you there are many ways, and I thought various ways when I was watching this.
Sorry.
But yeah, but speaking of these kind of like expositions, there is one that I thought they did really well, which was America Chavez's like backstory. And I think the only thing that was annoying was like the music that they chose for it. I kind of would have preferred them either going much more dramatic or just having it be silent. I didn't like the music they picked for it. But
I forget the music, honestly. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. I mean, it's like a tidbit that I wrote down. I was just like not having it, but
I believe it. I don't disbelieve that.
But I will say something that was very impressive is that they didn't shy away. Like for instance, like one of the characters, like one of the supporting cast in Kamala's like comic book, like she's like gay, and she's like, it's like a wonderful story that she goes through and whatever. And I was like, oh, they don't have her. Oh, they're not going to do this. Once again, they're like erasing the gay away. But then America shows up and you talk about the moms, and every time you mention moms in my notebook, I was like in like all caps, moms.
But it's even better than that, because you see America like looking on the street and you see like this like
I know.
gay
This
family walk
couple,
by,
yeah.
and it's like, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess they animated like those. That's our gay representation for this thing, and then you
But
realize,
at the-
oh,
yeah.
she's thinking of her moms in this moment.
Yeah, yeah. And at that moment, I was like, even then, I was like, okay, this is like, they might just be like walking near each other, but they might not be a family.
Yeah.
Like, it could be a lot of things. And the fact that they were like, no, this is a family, they're moms, and America misses her moms,
Yep.
and whatever. And like whenever anyone was like, her moms, though, I was like, oh my God, America.
I think of all the things, like, this is the weirdest thing. Like, they do the whole movie just like tell instead of show, and this is like the most incredible example of show instead of tell, and it's like,
yeah.
And I don't know how they did this moment, but they couldn't do anything else.
I don't know. But I mean, again, like, it's one of those things where it's like, if like this is one of the stories that they meant, like they got all, I don't know, I feel like it was just easier. It's like, it's because America's not an Inhuman, she's just someone from another dimension. That was easier to explain than all the Inhuman stuff.
That's pretty sad, honestly.
You know, and again, but I'm glad that they, even within their limited time, they did spend time on this. They could have easily like not done it. They could have easily had her be like Squirrel Girl.
Yeah.
You know?
This flashback also felt necessary because it was an alternate dimension thing, just from a story standpoint.
Totally. Exactly. Totally. You know, but like this, like I wouldn't say that Kamala's backstory doesn't make sense or doesn't add anything to the story, because it does add to her character and she is the protagonist of this. So I will say, like, it does make a little bit of sense, but
they
also
could have picked
like
a different flashback. I think.
Yeah, or not even the different flashback. They could have presented it in a different way.
Yes.
Because the thing is, like, all these things are being presented in the same way. It's like it was very formulaic in that sense, and that wasn't great.
It makes it strange though, because when you think about it, they only showed a flashback for Kamala and America, and not one for Doreen.
And Dante, they showed one for Dante.
Yes, they showed one for Dante too. But then they didn't show one for Doreen or Patriot, which felt weird considering it seems like it's our main cast. It felt like they should have one for each of them.
Yeah,
but
I don't
again,
know.
we don't have a lot of time here.
But again, and also not just that, but because it was so formulaic, I'm like, well, I'm glad that, I mean, if we were already calling them out for being formulaic, I'm like, okay, it's good that they kept it to a minimum at least.
Yeah.
I don't know. There are many ways to do flashbacks. It didn't have to be formulaic, but it was. And I will say one final thing with America. I love that they like the Spanish. Like, I love that they like had like her like just. Oh, I love it. For me, she was the strongest part of this. Like she was the one that was most well done, because she was like, in terms of, she didn't have to carry the movie in terms of moral support. Like, she didn't have as much responsibility as Kamala in terms of storytelling. Yep. She didn't have to carry the movie, but it's like, she was in, she was out. It was great. They did it well. It was like, whoever was in charge of that, like, well done.
Yes.
It's like that is what we need for like a lot of it.
I will say, I do think she's kind of one note in the like the present. Like in the flashback, I think she had a little more nuance to her character back then, but now she's kind of this.
I agree. And I will say, like, when Doreen and her, like, when she was again, and this is coming back to what we said earlier about, like, you either are good or you're bad. Like, there's no nuance.
Yeah.
It was, again, when she and Doreen had that argument, and Doreen just very quickly convinces her, and I'm like, wait, you are so against this, and you spent your entire life being, like, not doing anything, and then one random girl just shows up and is like, but your mom's, and it's like, oh, you're right, now I'm okay. It's like, that was very, very quickly. Like,
but
that
Beatriz,
was another...
This is the power of lesbians, obviously.
Obviously. Like, you just hear moms, and it's like, oh, of course. Like, how...
Of course.
Of course. Like, how could
I mean, it worked for
like,
you with Daisy, right? No, not Daisy, sorry. Yeah, no, it did work with you, Daisy, because you're like, she might be a lesbian.
I mean, no, I'm just saying, like, they look good together, is all I'm saying. Not only do they look good together, but, like, that is, like, the one thing where I'm like, oh, if there's, like, hints of this, then I could see myself invested much more in Daisy's character. Yeah. And maybe it's because I'm also, like, I know her from, I did watch a bit of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so I, like, know Quake, I'm, like, aware, so, like, obviously it's, like, a different Quake, the one we see in the show, but, again, so I guess I was as much... it's similar to, like, Kamala. Like, I know so much about Kamala. If someone from the outside that doesn't know anything watches this, it might be like, Kamala's a super weak character. I don't understand the whole buzz about her. Then it's like, it'd be the same thing. You know, it's like, that's why. Like, I understand. And yeah. Anyway.
Speaking of, I think they did, we kind of glossed over this with Kamala. I think that she, in terms of a main character, has a great power set. I think that
Yeah.
she just has a very versatile power set. She's not too strong. She's not too weak. She can do a lot of varied things. She can become bigger. She can become smaller. She can shapeshift. It's just a lot of really interesting things she can do with that power. And it makes for, if they write well, it makes for a lot of interesting ways she can solve problems. They didn't really do that a lot, but I can see a show where they can have her solve problems in a lot of really interesting ways. And I think that's a good thing for a main character.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's so important that a main character isn't OP, that isn't overpowered. And there's just, there's a little bit more, I don't know. I could just so easily see her be like, I don't know, someone I can see her sacrificing herself in a series finale being like, no, I'm going to do it. And then America being like, no, I should have been me. I could have handled it or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about Dante and Victor.
Okay.
So Dante, I didn't know much about. Dante, again, he's someone that I feel like could have been switched with any other Inhuman.
Yes, I agree.
He didn't really leave much of an impression. And then suddenly, what again? Just the quickness in shifting from good and bad. 1 minute he's the enemy, even though, even if he was, even if Kamala was rooting for him, just everyone now suddenly trusts him.
Yeah.
Even though they or he trusts them, even though everybody was against him, he's not even mad at them for being. I don't know. I'm just. There could have been a little bit more there, but again, this is just same old criticisms. The one that I do want to focus on more is Victor. He was the one that I was like, okay, there's something here.
Yes.
And not in the way you think. I think it was a mistake for them to introduce Hala. I think it was a mistake for them to have her be the big bad of this movie because I didn't, she was so minuscule of a role. She did nothing.
Yeah.
There was nothing for, and I read a synopsis for the specials that we'll get into the specials, but that they're going to be doing for Marvel Rising.
I haven't even done that. I know what they're about, but I haven't even read the synopsis.
She's back. She's showing up again. She's
okay.
coming back. So it's it's not it's a one and done thing, but it's if she's going to be the major big bad, you didn't have to show her in this introduction to everything. You could have saved her up, build her up. This introduction of her just shows her as just this really weak villain, not really that interesting.
It would have been better if she was just a hologram here, even if they really wanted to show us her
something, make her the Emperor. You never see her face or something. I don't know. There are ways. And the thing is, when Victor shows up with Kamala, when after her fight with Doreen and after she wants to make up, when he shows up, that scene to me was very much coded with rape language. He says he disregards her no. The minute she says no, he acts with violence. The minute he says, you don't have a choice. He says, I'm going to ignore your no. The way that he spoke was very much metaphor. It was just very clearly a parallel to sexual assault. It was very clear parallel to, men just not accepting no. And especially with everything that's going on in the world right now, it's it was a very big moment. It was I think it was a very the fact that we're seeing this guy and showing him in a negative light. Because sometimes we see this happen in a positive light in just pop culture. Well, you'll see a guy ignore a girl's no and then end up, whatever. You know what I mean?
It's a romantic comedy, haha.
Or ha ha ha, whatever. No, we saw him as the villain. We saw him. It was shown as a bad thing what he was doing. He was being horrible. And the fact that he is not the main villain of this story, at least in this movie, when he could have been, at the end, they were trying to, what's that word? They were trying to, bring him back to the good side. They're you're better than this or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's okay. Keep him as the villain.
Yeah.
Commit to this kind of, this type of imagery that you're presenting us. This is, don't show us go commit to this evil that is in some people, and this kind of power hungry predatoriness that people have. Commit to that negativity and that villainy, and suddenly you have a very interesting story and you have a very much more menacing character. And it's better than Hala. It's better than it's better than 2 seconds with Hollow we got, and it's better than the watered down version of Victor we got. Like, there is a version of the story where he is the main bad, and it's like very much in echoing the themes of the Me Too movement and stuff like that. And it could have been very well done and very powerful to be something shown, sure, at 10 p.m., but something very powerful to be aired on Disney Channel.
I'm sorry, you just reminded me this was on TV at 10 p.m. for some reason.
I know.
But, sorry, I'm not trying to cut you off, but I when I watched this, I didn't get that feeling when I watched it, but you saying it, lining it up like this, I definitely see what you're saying. But I think it's just that when I see stuff like this, I'm used to male characters in shows like this acting in this way. And also this show is not very deep in its metaphors for things. And so I wasn't just really reading into things. And that might have just been a mistake on my part. And you lining out like that, yeah, they definitely should just run on with this, because I can see exactly what you're saying, like a more, not darker, but more of a focus on him instead of having him saying all this stuff with Hala right in the background. Like, it just doesn't feel consequential anymore. It doesn't. It's not to say that she couldn't be like, maybe not reveal it's Hala, but it's not to say that you couldn't have like that moment where he's like talking to his like master or whatever. Yeah. It's not like you couldn't have that, but making him the focus would have solved the constant criticism of lack of depth. It could have solved that. It could have been like given him more depth, given the story itself a much more powerful message than just simply girl power. It's like, no, we're going to actually talk about like issues that are impacting the world, It just kind of undercuts him by the fact that like he is doing these things like you said, but it just feels like he's just an extension of Hala in this by the end of this, instead of being his own character, so it just loses its weight in that regard. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. For me at least. Totally. And I think that's why I never really saw it that way that you saw it. And again, like you said, it's definitely there now that you've lined it out. But it just, having her be there just kind of cuts out that whole message they might have been trying to get through. Yeah. All right, so the last two people, I don't know if we want to talk that much about Lockjaw. I was happy that Lockjaw showed up. Okay, I want to mention Lockjaw because he might have been one of the better parts of this movie, to be completely honest. Yeah. I like that they didn't explain anything about Lockjaw. No, he's like, oh yeah. He did nothing. I loved it. I was like, it's like, who is this? And it's like, it fits, but here's why it works. It fits because Kamala doesn't know who the heck Lockjaw is. She just connects with him. And that fits. It's like, we're just, by that point, it's like, okay, Kamala trusts him, we're good. We can spend a later episode or 22-minute special or whatever the heck they're going to do with this show or not show. Whatever they're going to do, we could spend like a B plot finding out about Lockjaw, and who he actually is. Like, we know I don't know if you know who he is, but we know who he is. But they could have like done that later and it could have been like a surprise. Like, surprise, he's actually from the moon and all the Inhumans are from the moon and stuff like that. But he's actually he led some pretty funny scenes, and also that he was used, I think, very well. Like, I thought the scene where they teleported and then she's like, do it again, and then they just teleport again. Like, that was a pretty funny scene, all things considered. Yeah. And I will say, I kind of wish, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, I kind of wish Captain Marvel wasn't in. I agree completely. She did nothing. It's not even that she did nothing. It's just, I feel like we deserve a better moment for her and Kamala to meet. Like, we deserve like a better, like, it just needed to be the two of them. It needed to be just like with nothing else happening. It just needed to be like Kamala, like, because, she is she is the number one for Kamala. The reason Kamala is Miss Marvel is because she was inspired by Carol Danvers. And there needed to be like, that moment needed to happen. I feel like they rushed it. I feel like they were like, we need to give the fans what they want, Kamala and Carol. And it's like, no, it was, I feel like they deserved a better moment, I think. Yeah, and I think it's just, this goes back to Spider-Man because I really do feel like they're making Kamala Spider-Man in this situation. Like, she is the Spider-Man analog, a similar like new hero with no one to really compare herself to. Yeah. And with Spider-Man, he does everything he does without caring about what everyone else thinks. He's just a hero. That's what he is. And part of Kamala is that she does that too, but she has a role model, and that's okay. But if she does all this and she meets a role model, like, it kind of undercuts her feelings here. She's supposed to be doing it just because she's a hero. This kind of feels like, oh, I'm a hero. Ooh, I got to meet my role model. Like, it just feels like... I mean, like, here's the thing. Like, Kamala's always been a fangirl, though. No. So I've, like, whenever she meets, like, Wolverine, whenever she was, like, she talks about fanfic and stuff. Like, she was a fan. And I think this is because
again, we don't necessarily understand, or like people don't understand that like Kamala at one point wasn't a superhero.
Yeah.
That wasn't 100% made clear. So because of that, it's like, well, not that it wasn't made clear, but because it didn't really spend time exploring that, it's kind of like she wants to be a hero, but it's like she used to be one of the people who would just watch superheroes. Like for instance, with Spider-Man, like he didn't see Tony Stark flying,
no,
or like Captain America doing crazy things. He didn't have the role models. Kamala does, and it's kind of like she very much lives in the world where these people exist and are out in the open.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I don't blame that, and I don't mind that. For me, it's more of like I would have much rather preferred Captain Marvel kind of appear for like Squirrel Girl and everybody, and then have Kamala not meet her, and then have it be like, what, you met her? And then they're like, oh yeah, she told us to say hi. She's like, she told us to tell you that she likes your name, or she likes your suit, or something.
Well, no, that's not it for me. I just want, what I feel like is it feels unearned, because I want the first moment when she meets her role model to be in a show like this where she is the focus. She's the only person. She's allowed to meet other people and fangirl, but if it's going to be her role model like this, it needs to matter, and it needs to be in a way that Carol shows in some way respect for her. Like she knows who she is. That's a big part of it. That's a big part for a young hero like her, that she needs to be like it. I don't even know how to write it, but
I guess it needs to be earned in a way.
Yeah, because like I forget which show it was in. I know it's one of the Avengers TV shows. There's a scene where Spider-Man meets Captain America, and he's talking to Captain America about how like he's running from the law. It's horrible. Like the news is saying horrible things about him. And Captain America just says like, well, I know about someone else in New York who's getting attacked by the news, and he just keeps being a hero. And that's pretty incredible. And Spider-Man's like, whoa, like there's a feeling of respect from Captain America to Spider-Man, and it really affects him. And that's kind of what I want from this. I want to feel like Kamala should be fangirling over Captain Marvel, because here it doesn't feel like that. It just feels like she's here at her like 9-to-5 job, and it's like, what's going on? This doesn't fit with the show at all, and it just kind of, I want more. I want more there.
Like it needed to have it needed to be a bigger moment. I just feel like it needed to be a bigger moment.
Yeah.
And they weren't allowed that bigger moment. So I feel like it felt shoved in when it didn't need to.
They just wanted to rush all the characters into this movie, essentially.
Yeah. And I get it. They wanted Captain Marvel to be like the main person, but it could have been done in a way where like she was still like not present. You know, it could have been like, it could have been like in a letter or like a video or whatever, or I don't know. It just could have been in a way that you could still have Captain Marvel as like the one who watches over them, but not in such a way. It could have been like if Captain Marvel had been the Captain America of this,
that would have been better if they reversed. Like,
yeah,
not even
reversed. If anything, it was just like, if it was just like, it was Daisy just being like, I got orders, like we can do this or whatever, and then and then at the end have the post credit scene be her talking to Captain Marvel, and have Marvel be the one to be behind it all. Then it would maybe be a little bit more like, oh, like she's gonna eventually meet her, and then like whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
but for how it is now, it feels like Young Justice, in that it feels like Captain Marvel's just Batman, like giving them assignments. It doesn't feel like it feels like she's going to be a character who shows up a bunch, and I'm not sure I like that.
Well, at the same time, like with Young Justice, at least, like that setup was like you knew that like 5 minutes in.
Yes,
you know,
that is true.
So I was like, okay, we didn't need so much time to set this up. It was like, okay, this is it, and go. And it's like, okay, cool. And then we get into the characters. And that was what was so great about that show, is that we were able to get to know these characters and root for them.
I guess that is the issue then, because like this is just the premiere of Young Justice stretched out like really long.
Yeah, exactly. It's just this entire movie was just set up, essentially.
Yeah. But it makes me still not understand what Initiation was then, because that was set up for something.
I don't know. Well, speaking of Initiation, so there's going to be 2 22-minute specials.
Just call them episodes. They're episodes.
They're episodes. There's 2 episodes. One's called Chasing Ghosts, which is going to focus on Ghost Spider. So Spider-Gwen is coming back. And then another is going to be Heart of Iron, which is going to be about I guess Riri, I think it's Riri Williams is her name.
I think so.
And she's Ironheart.
Yes.
And here's the question. It's like,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, but I don't know. I was just like, wait, I thought like are we just growing the ensemble?
Yeah.
And then it's like, wait, but we didn't even get to know these characters. It's like, are we gonna keep stretching ourselves off too thin? Like, as we already see, they're already so thinned out. So it's like, that's nerve-wracking. And again, will say, Spider-Gwen is the most interesting character.
Yes.
And she wasn't even in, like, she was in the I guess the 6 shorts were just dedicated to her, and they were able to do so much.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, oh, sure. I don't know.
I'd be very upset if Spider-Gwen ends up on this team at the end of it, because I don't want every character we meet ending up on the team.
I don't think she will. I don't think she will.
I don't think she will either. I'm just saying, like, that'd be a bad move. I hope they don't.
Here's the thing, though. If the best characters are the ones who are just recurring characters,
that's bad.
There's a problem. If your main cast isn't, if your main ensemble isn't the one we're waiting for, then we have a problem. So they need to fix. They need. I don't know what it is that they're gonna do. I don't know if they're gonna do a show. I don't know what it is that they're planning on doing, but they need to correct course.
Yeah,
quickly.
And they have the parts here to make it, because Kamala's great. Like, she is. It's just they didn't do anything really with her, but she is great, and I want them to do things with her. And Doreen has a lot of untouched backstory that we can go into, where we have a lot of depth that we can get, and they just need to actually want to go into it. It feels like, because it feels like they didn't want to.
Well, I don't know. I don't think that's fair to say. I don't know. I don't think it's that they didn't want to. I think it's wrong wording. It's not. I think it's just there wasn't room. There wasn't room in this thing we saw, and that's or rather, not that there wasn't room. It's just that it feels like they were only allowed to do setup in this movie.
Yeah,
or like
that's
not
like room.
This is where it's supposed to end. And it's like we didn't need a setup to be. We needed the setup to just be 22 minutes long.
Yes.
Like, I would have much rather preferred that be 22 minutes. Like, I don't know. I would have much rather preferred, like, a rearrangement of things so that these 22-minute specials with, like, a 22-minute version of this movie put together, it's like, okay, there you go. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, like, remember with Clone Wars, the first 4 episodes were made into this movie, but it was still 4 episodes, and then the show kept going. Yep. And it's like, okay, this was just 1 episode, and they felt like they needed to make a movie out of 1 episode instead of just making 4 episodes and putting them together into a movie.
Yeah, it felt unnecessary. And I think what you're getting at here is that, like, one thing you touched on that I really want to get into is that they made this whole thing setup, and I don't like that setup doesn't include setup for the characters, because like we mentioned before, Young Justice, at the end of the setup for Young Justice, I know the main driving force of each character. I know what Robin wants. I know what Aqualad wants. I know what Kid Flash wants. I'm not really sure what the like driving force for every single character on this team is, because we didn't get full depth here. And I wish we had set up like that more than set up for all the villains.
I think maybe the problem is that they don't know what they want to do with this project yet.
Yeah.
So they don't know how much time they have. So they don't know how, like, for instance, with Young Justice, it's like, okay, they had X amount of episodes.
Yep, and they could
then they added more and whatever.
Yeah.
But with this, like, they were only given, like, okay, you're gonna do like a pilot, but we're gonna extend it into a movie that we didn't really need. And then it's like, okay, cool. Now we're gonna give you these 2 22-minute specials, but I don't know if we're gonna give you more. We're gonna see how it goes. And it's like, that's not. Like, there's a version of this movie that could have done what this movie did in a much more graceful fashion, in a much higher quality fashion. But I don't think the uncertainty of this project, the inability to know exactly what this project is, helped the project.
It did not help.
Or it helped the writers, or I guess, like, again, like, there were ways, but it didn't make the job easier.
It definitely did not. It's clear that there was It clears there's stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. Well, I refuse to think.
This is just all, like, from this very removed place that we're watching this from.
And I'll say that we don't know much about what's going on, but I refuse to think that they made a product like this without something going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, because it feels like there's a lot of pieces that didn't line up the way they should.
I don't know. I think, for instance, like, I think that there's a lot more planned, and it's just, I just don't like the way that they've presented. Instead of being outright like, okay, we have this planned, it's kind of like they didn't. What it feels to me, this is how it feels to me. I feel like they didn't want to say, oh, we're making like this show and then have it bomb.
Oh, no, I get that. I'm more talking about like, I don't get why the music is the way it is. I don't get why the animation's the way
totally.
it is.
There are definitely problems with what we were given itself.
Yeah. I don't know. It felt like they didn't want to commit to something that, like you were saying, they didn't want to commit to something that will fail. And I think that's just a mistake. Because if you don't fully commit to something, it's just going to fail. That's just how it is.
Yeah. I mean, not to say that people weren't passionate about this.
No.
It's just,
and there's a reason to be.
For instance, again, Initiation was a lot of fun to watch.
And
so they have all the elements to make this work. It's just disappointing that the setup was what it was.
And it's even stranger considering the fact that just how like much commitment there was behind the actual like Marvel movies. Like that was a huge leap of faith what they did there, and then they just make such a tiny little jump here. It's very well, again,
different. That's a little different. It's different.
But it's the same studio.
Comparing a live action blockbuster like movie thing, which again, huge leap of faith, but comparing that to an animated show that doesn't have like a 16th of that budget, it's a little different. Like, but for me, a better comparison would be that to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Like that to me is a better comparison.
Well, I wish they had done something like that with this. Like that was so incredible.
Budget, time, like we don't know exactly the details, so there is like.
What I'm saying is, I wish they had what I mean by commitment is, wish they'd put more money into it. Like, I'm not saying they would need a blockbuster budget. I'm just saying they put a blockbuster budget into Iron Man. They could have put a TV show, like at least a Steven Universe's budget into this. You know what I mean? Like an episode's budget into this. Yeah. They didn't even do that.
Or I maybe like, like the more I hear about the Into the Spider-Verse, the more I'm seeing of it, the more it becomes very evident to me that everyone behind that wanted to make the best thing possible. And not to say that they didn't want to do it with this one, but like the amount of work that went into that project. Like every character from the different universes has a different style.
Yeah,
like
it's incredible.
It's crazy. So the fact that like you have like that, I don't know how much budget they were given, but not to say they compare budgets, but it's like. They did the most that they could with the restrictions they had. And it doesn't look like they ever couldn't do something they wanted to do. This feels like this show, it feels like they might have wanted to do things, but they just couldn't. Or not necessarily that they couldn't, it's just they were given certain restrictions, and then instead of being like, okay, like let's make the best out of this,
they just
kind of
stuck
like,
to the skeleton they were given, maybe.
Yeah, they were just like, okay, let's just do this by the minute. Or maybe they did try and do it, and then something happened. I don't know.
But to be fair to them, like when you're given like a ton of restrictions and you can't make it work, like I understand just throwing in the towel and just being like, we have to just make something. I understand that. I'm not upset with the writers on this. I think there's something else going on here, because there are some really good moments in here that are written well, and there's some really good moments in here that I felt things for, and it just feels like I'm confused why the whole movie isn't like that, because there is a heart here, there are good characters here, but it just doesn't really crystallize in a way that's
foggy. It was just fogged up by other stuff. It was weighed down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we covered a good chunk. I think we're good on that front.
That was a long tangent.
But it's good. It's good. Yeah. We care a lot. We care a lot, and we want a great show. So
also it's good that Kamala's getting a bigger like audience.
Totally. And not just that, but like I will not be surprised if she does show up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like she's got to. Anyway. Yes. So that does it for this podcast. You can find out all the info on this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can listen to our pod on the Marvel Rising shorts, which we did a little bit over a month ago, like 2 months ago.
A month and a half. Yeah.
It was just, us like freaking out over Spider-Gwen and just having a great time. We were much more positive, I think, on that one.
Because we were excited about what was to come.
Yeah, we were just if there's like another movie, you can bet that I'm going to watch it. But it's just kind of like, it's tough love, I guess, the best way to describe it.
What we're saying is we'll be here when the two
Basically.
22-minute specials are out.
Yeah, we'll be here. We'll still be watching and caring like way too much about these characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can join us on Discord to text chat about animation at overlyanimated.com/Discord. Like, you can tell us all you thought about Marvel Rising, Secret Warriors, and whether you agree or disagree with us. You can support us via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to all our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, John, aka Johnny Bravo. And thanks, as always, to our Patreon executive producers, John, Ryan, Steve, Alex, and Hugh. And thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.